morning, folks. Isn't it beautiful to be here this morning? As we come here today, we're living our spirit. We're coming and sharing our stories with each other, the stories of our lives, of our joy in being here, of light streaming into our minds and love streaming into our hearts. And I'm introducing Cheryl Bernath today, who is an embodiment of light and love, who is living her purpose, what she believes she's here to do, in a way that shares her story with people. She is a songwriter. She is a journalist, as she's been featured in Venture Inward. She is a journaler, as she has 190-some journals, which are the stories of her life so she can remember them and go back. As you all know, she writes beautiful music. She also creates our lives together as we attract our stories. And she will actually be at ARE in the New Year's Conference, speaking December 29th at 2:30, and it's a conference on the law of attraction. The thing that's so amazing about Cheryl, though, is when something comes her way, she embraces it. She does not ask, is this mine to do? She does it. And sometimes, as we all know, as we're living our lives, we don't know what we're exactly getting into when we do it, but it's manifest in our lives to go ahead and do that anyway. Without further ado, Cheryl Bernath.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here and see all these friendly faces. So you may have heard this. There's an oft-quoted Chinese curse. But you never heard someone in church start off with a curse first. May you live in interesting times. And I think that as much as we may be having a hard time currently agreeing on anything in this country, this we would agree on. These are interesting times. Just depends on how you want to interpret the word, interesting. So I love this particular Casey quote, and I used to be the facilitator at ARE, Association for Research and Enlightenment, and I used to start off the conferences with this a lot because I think that it's something we all need to hear. And that is from a Casey reading, be glad that you have the opportunity to be alive at this time and to be a part of that preparation for the coming influences of a spiritual nature that must rule the world. These are indicated, and these are part of thy experience. Be happy for it and give thanks for it daily. And there were a couple words in there that were italicized because when his secretary Gladys Davis was taking down this reading, if he emphasized something in the reading, she italicized it, and be glad was the first thing that was italicized. And also that a spiritual nature must rule the world. That was the other thing that was italicized in that reading. Because this is a time of opportunity. A time when the veil between the worlds is getting thinner, and we have more access than ever to God, the divine mind, our guides, our guardian angels, our angels. They're whatever you want to label those forces of good. And many ancient texts from many different religions have called this the time of the ascension. Our graduation to a higher vibration on the earth plane here. And I know Bruce was here last week talking about the Revelation, and in the Revelation it talks about the travail of birth, and those women who have had children know about that. And we're in that time. We're in the travail of birth, and we're birthing a much better world right now. And it's painful, and you never quite know how long the labor pains are going to last. And we are the midwives. Okay, we're the light workers. How many people here feel like they actually volunteered to come down here at this time and help? during the shift. Okay? So these are the people that we call the light workers. Or you'll very often hear this kind of bandied around. Some of us remember volunteering to come here to do this. Some of us don't remember. Those of you who don't know if you're a light worker, if you're here this morning, you are. And there's no accident that you are here on this planet or in this room actually this morning. In the midst of all the chaos and confusion that's out there, you've come seeking light and love, and therefore you are also spreading light and love, and you are a light worker. Light workers are feeling just a little bit overwhelmed at this time. It wasn't enough. We had to save the whales and stop Monsanto and support the Native Americans fighting the Dakota Access Pipeline and find cruelty-free cosmetics and eat horrible fake tofu cheese to ease the suffering of dairy cows. Now we have this. And it's all just a little bit daunting. And the ETs that we've been waiting for to come down and save us apparently took a wrong turn at Pluto because they changed it and it's not a planet anymore. You know, and we just realized that we may have to save ourselves. And we are the co-creators. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the midwives. And we are the angels unaware. So before I do a talk, I always ask, what is it that the people who are going to be here, because Spirit already knows who's going to be here, what do they need most to hear this Sunday? And I waited till after the election because I knew the energy was going to change. And I didn't know, when I planned to do this talk. So I waited. Normally I don't wait so long. And when I asked, this story popped into my head, and it's a real experience that I had about 6 years ago. And so I consider it divine inspiration. I know that I'm supposed to tell you this story. So it's a true story. It's a very personal experience. It's kind of a George Bailey sort of story. How many people know who George Bailey is? Okay, for those of you who don't know about George Bailey, he's the protagonist of the movie It's a Wonderful Life. How many of you know It's a Wonderful Life movie? Okay, they play it every Christmas at the Narrow, coming up to Christmas, and David and I go over here, my all-time favorite movie. So George Bailey is this man who has despaired. He's in despair. He feels like he's been a failure. He's in a big spot right now, and everything is falling apart. And so his guardian angel is sent down to help at this point because he's thinking about committing suicide. Okay, so his wife and children can collect on his life insurance policy. And he actually says at one point, I wish I'd never been born. And the guardian angel's thought is, okay, I'm going to show you what would have happened if you'd never been born. And that's what the rest of the movie is about. All the good that he's done in his life and the world and all the people that his life has touched. And that world was actually better with him in it. And it's the story about the difference just one person can make in all the seeming little insignificant things and how we interact with each other in kindness every single day if we could only know. So my favorite little part of this story, this was not my personal story, I'm getting to that. My favorite part of the story is about Mr. Gower. Now Mr. Gower in the movie is a pharmacist. And George Bailey works in his soda fountain and there's a pharmacy in the back. And he's just a boy at the time. And this is one of the scenes that he gets to view. His angel takes him back and he sees himself as a little boy. And Mr. Gower has just gotten a telegram that his adult son, who is in another city, has passed away due to the flu. Okay, so George goes in the back and he asks if there's anything he can do, and Mr. Gower is in tears. And he's been drinking a lot. And he's making up a preparation to send to some people. And George sees that he's put poison in the capsules because he's so upset and he's drinking. And he tries to tell him. but he doesn't want to hear it. And he sends George on his way and says, deliver this now. So he's a boy, you know, this is the adult, he's telling him to deliver it. So he goes out and he doesn't know what to do. And he looks up and sees a sign on the wall in the soda shop that says, ask Dad, he knows. And it's an advertisement for something, okay? And I love this because those signs and those synchronicities happen all the time. And that's my favorite part of that story. And when he's gone back and he wasn't there, when he goes back and sees what happened when he wasn't there, nobody was there to stop that child being poisoned. That child died. Mr. Gower ended up going to prison for 20 years. He turned out being a terrible alcoholic. He was shunned by everyone in the city, all because that little boy decided out of compassion and kindness not to tell anyone. He brought it back and he said, this is poison. He said, we can't send this. He said, I will never tell anybody, because he intervened. He intervened, but he was compassionate enough to stay quiet about it, and it was just a moment of severe stress for this man that would never happen again. So that one little thing. So my story is that it's 2011, and I've been meditating pretty regularly at that point. And for those of you who don't know too much about meditation, I love the Casey explanation of meditation because it's just like you're having a conversation with God, and the praying part is you talking, and the listening part is the meditating. You know, and it wouldn't be much of a conversation if you were having a conversation with a person and you didn't shut up long enough for that person to make some kind of a comment. So God thinks that we have really poor social skills, but he or she is very patient and just keeps waiting for us to stop long enough so that God can communicate with us. So on January 2nd of 2011, I decided at the end of my meditation I was going to ask, what would it be most helpful to know? I don't know why I thought of this, but okay, and I got something immediately. Now, when I say I heard something, it's not like a physical voice. If you've ever gotten an inspiration when you're meditating, it's sort of like you get these words that come into your head, but you don't actually hear them, but they're not your thoughts. You know that because they're so out of the blue and so not anything that you were thinking about. So immediately when I asked that question, I got Wisteria Lane. Okay. I get a flash of a dark blue compact car. And I hear again, sort of, January 22nd. Now, I really don't know what to do with this. So I wrote it down, because I write everything in my journal. And I just kind of put it aside, because I really didn't know what to do with it. So 2 weeks later, I decide to ask again. And this time I hear indecent exposure coming up. I actually never told David this part. Because I share everything with this part I didn't tell him. This gives me pause. And I probably spent a few days a little more aware of men walking around in raincoats when it wasn't raining. So the next day I asked for more information. And I get 6:19. Okay, so I wrote it down. Again, I get wisteria. And now I've got a time, 3 o'clock. So I write it down. And I think, is this in Virginia Beach? You know, Norfolk, another state? What's going on here? And I get a yes. And if I don't intervene, I will be reading about it in the newspapers. I didn't tell David that part either. I asked if I was supposed to go alone, because I knew David would want to come with me. And it said yes. So when I was done, I wrote everything down. I looked up on my GPS if there was a Wisteria Lane in Virginia Beach, because I wasn't aware of it. And yes, there was. And it was a brand new development, housing development. And it was only about maybe a mile away from my house, but I had never seen the sign before because it was new. It was all new kind of apartment buildings. So that was kind of cool because it was close. And I'm feeling a little tiny bit of fear about this, but I'm thinking that I'm driving now, and I'm thinking I would not be misled after having such a beautiful meditation and setting my intention to have this conversation with God. I would not be misled, and it's not going to put me in a spot where I'd be harmed. And I look up, and I'm at a big intersection, and on one of the poles of the intersection is a huge hawk. Very unusual place to see a hawk in the middle of all these cars going everywhere, and I've never seen one there before or since. To me, that's a message to me, because it seems that I will see a hawk if I want confirmation of something. I always notice when I'm thinking, what I have been thinking when I see a hawk. It's like messenger to me. And I had been thinking that I would be safe, and it was okay. So I'm getting confirmation that whatever is going on, it's going to be okay. So January 22nd, the day, rolls around, and I'm taking a hypnotherapy class at ARE, and it's really expensive. And I've paid a lot of money to take this class, but I have this appointment at 3 o'clock, okay? And I know I have to be there. So I make plans to actually leave my hypnotherapy class and go to Wisteria Lane at 3 o'clock. And I don't know what the 619 is and the blue compact car, but this is all kind of in my head. And I tell David and 2 friends that are in the class, and they all promise that they will surround me with prayers when I go. And I'm actually feeling okay about this. I'm kind of excited. And for some reason, I've kind of momentarily forgotten about the indecent exposure part. I think that just kind of got a little pushed to the side. So I leave early, because I'm always early for everything. And I get there early because I want to be there at 3 o'clock. So I'm maybe there 20 minutes early. And I'm driving around, and I go down this road, and it's kind of, it goes in a big circle. So I'm driving around, and I'm looking at everything, and I'm thinking 619 is maybe an address, because I got that as well. So, but I'm looking, and all the apartments are all in the thousands. They're 1,000s and 2,000s, and there are also numbers on the parking spaces, but they match the apartment numbers, and there's nothing 619. Now I'm also looking for a blue compact car. Now you would think that that is the most common thing. But oddly enough, that day I'm not seeing any dark blue compact cars that look like my car that I saw. And so I kind of go around again, and I'm looking around, and then I look and I see this car, and I look at the license plate, and the license plate is only 3 letters, and it says FUM. Now that's F as in Frank, U-M. Now this may mean nothing to you, but for the last about a week and a half, I have had this song in my head, because I'm in a choir, and we sang this song, Foom, Foom, Foom. It's an English Christmas carol. And it's been driving me insane. We do 20-some songs, but that song, I wake up in the morning and that song's in my head. It's in my head all day long. And I'm thinking, I often get messages in songs. I listen to the lyrics. But Foom? I mean, really, what am I supposed to make out of Foom? And I looked it up, I Googled it, and it's like, in Old English, it's kind of like la la la, so it doesn't really have a meaning. But when I see that license plate, and that song has been stuck in my head, I laughed. Because now I know I'm in the right place. That car is not matching the car that I saw, but the license plate clues me in that I'm in the right place. Now I'm kind of excited. I roll the window down and I take a picture of the license plate, okay? Wouldn't you? Come on. So I'm sitting in the car wondering what the heck to do. It's about 15 minutes before 3, and I'm wondering what to do, and I see this man, who's probably in his 50s, walk down this long path and go out to the area where they keep the garbage. And it's got a big fence. It's like all hidden. You can't see where the garbage cans were, but I knew they were back there because I saw someone else taking out their garbage. So I know it's back there. So I'm just kind of watching people and trying to figure out what's going on. And he's back there a really long time, but he doesn't have any garbage or anything. He's just back there. And I'm just sitting there waiting for 3 o'clock, so I'm noticing things. And I'm also realizing how suspicious I must look. And if anything does happen, there are probably video cameras of me prowling around and looking, taking pictures of people's license plates. So finally the man comes back, and on the way back, he sees me sitting in the car. He just sees me. And I'm very aware that he's seen me. And that's all that happens. Okay, but it's not 3 o'clock yet. So I'm still there. I don't know what to do. I don't feel threatened in any way. I feel fine. I decide to drive around again. So I drive around again, looking for the car and looking at the numbers and stuff. But then it comes to my mind that it might be a license plate number because of seeing that license plate. And well, maybe the 619 is actually a license plate number. So I'm driving around. I decide to park. I just park randomly in an open space again for visitors. And I look over to my left, and I see a dark blue compact car. And it looks like what I saw. And I look at the license plate, and it says 619. Okay, so I know I'm in the right place. And I've got a perfect view of this car. I'm a little ways away. It's like I'm parked at an angle from this car. And there's cars in between us. But I have a perfect view of that car. And I'm thinking, well, I guess I watched the car. I don't know. You know, I don't really know what's going to happen. It's sitting on wisteria. I put down my window to take another picture. And my window sticks. I can't get my window up. So it's January. It's really cold. I have this perfect open window of opportunity. I've got a frame right around that car. And I just leave it because I can't get the window up. So it doesn't escape to me. I'm kind of laughing to myself because it's really pointing me in the direction of this car. And it's right around 3 o'clock. And right at 3 o'clock, I checked my clock on my van, and I turned and I looked again. And this girl comes out, a young girl came out of the apartment building. And she's an African-American girl. She looks about 11 or 12 maybe. And she comes out and she stands right behind that car. And she turns and she looks at me and our eyes meet. And I just smile at her because, I don't know, I didn't think about it. I just smiled at her. But our eyes met and I felt it right at 3 o'clock. So she turns and she goes back into the building, and she comes back out with a younger boy holding his hand. And they look like they're looking around for someone or nervous about seeing someone. I don't know why I got that impression. That's the impression that I got. They're hesitant. And they pause, and then they kind of go off down the sidewalk. Now I'm thinking, I don't think I'm going to approach these kids, you know. I'm not really sure what I'm doing there. But I knew that it meant something important when our eyes met. I knew it, and I smiled at her. So I think, well, maybe that's it. And I start to pull out. And then I noticed that I was sitting next to a van that's a big security van, which I thought was really interesting. Okay? And I feel really compelled to pull back into that parking place and sit there and say a prayer of protection for those 2 children. I don't know what else I can do, but I sit there, and I've never had really that compelling thought before. But I sat there and I just surrounded those kids with light. So when I felt a sense of completion, and I felt like a sense of completion, like it did what I was supposed to do. And so I leave and I head home, and I'm not very far from my house, and I'm in the car and I've stopped at a light, and I'm thinking about what just happened and just how one seemingly really small thing, like smiling at somebody or catching someone's eye, can really change a life. And I look up, and there's an empty field there, and there's a big sign that says, "Save one life." And that was my George Bailey moment. So I'm kind of feeling a little high from all this, because I followed my guidance, and it took me somewhere, and I knew that I was supposed to be there. So I start up again. I almost missed the light because I'm staring at this sign. And I noticed that the car in front of me has this big bumper sticker that says, "Practice random acts of kindness." I went, okay, I've got all my signs going now. So when I got home, I was telling my mother about my really unusual day, because I could tell her after the fact what had happened. And in the middle of telling her, I just started to sob. Now, I have to tell you, those of you who know me well, I'm not a big crier. I don't like to cry in front of people. I don't cry at movies. David just like a mess at movies, but I'm like, I don't cry at movies. I don't know why. But I felt as I was telling her, I knew that very moment, I didn't know which it was, or both. Was it the smiling at her and catching her eye, or was it the praying, or was it a combination of both? But something changed. Something changed, I have no doubt. So when I got home, which I often do, I ask for guidance. I have a pack of angel cards, and it's just a tool. It's just a language that you can use to kind of get guidance. And I asked, what was that all about? And I shuffled and I picked a card, and it was the signs card. And it said, "Pay careful attention to the messages your angels give you now. Notice and trust these signs. They might compel you to hear a song several times." Really? Foom, foom, foom. So, why was it this story that you all needed to hear today? And this was the message that I was given, why you needed to hear that story. Do not despair, light workers. Every day, in the smallest act of kindness that you put out in your little world, you are indeed changing the vibration on this planet. One soul at a time, and each of us is inestimably precious. Take heart. You have done more, accomplished more than you can possibly imagine, and have come farther than the distance that you have to go. Those peace prayers that were going on before the election and during the election, one Edgar Casey reading told the Glad Helpers prayer group that as little as 40 people with the same intention and prayer could have averted World War II. Hundreds of thousands of people participated together in unity to pray for peace. They were jumping up and down on the other side because this was a big breakthrough on this planet. And that's what we need to focus on. You think maybe you've fallen back, but that was a huge breakthrough. Don't stop now. You are the light workers. You are the midwives. You are the angels unaware.